Hi, I'm Alan,
I'm Brandon.
And I'm James.
and this is Chingoo
Chingoo
Chat.
Chat.
Welcome. So it's been a while actually since we did our last episode, but I'm glad to be back here.
No, it's been a week because you guys did the we didn't air that one. So I was in Korea in February, and Brandon, Alan, and Jenny did a mukbang tour of some different eating spots in LA. But we're gonna save that episode for a future date. But yeah, it has been a while. It's been a few weeks since we last saw you guys. So welcome back.
Yeah. All right. So for today's episode, what we're going to be talking about is folktales. And
Korean folktales specifically, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, specifically Korean folktales. So I did a little bit of research because I wanted to kind of give you guys a comparison of American versus Korean folktales. But it was actually kind of hard to find American folktales. Actually, before that, let me tell you guys what folktales are. So they're basically stories that are passed down by generation to generation. And they're meant to teach a lesson, like a moral or a story, for the kids of that generation and growing up. It's like an easy way for children to absorb specific lessons, like life lessons, right? So I think a famous one that is from America is Bigfoot. That's kind of a folk story, but it was hard for me to find other ones.
I think Bigfoot, more than it being like a fairy tale, because I don't know if there's an actual story behind Bigfoot. It's basically a fictional character,
Right.
that it's kind of like, I don't know if you would consider it folklore, but it's basically a kind of like the Tooth Fairy, right?
It's like a creature.
It's like this big hairy creature, kind of like the Loch Ness monster. There's crazy people that have claimed to have seen it, but it's not really a story. I think what we're talking about is the what is it? The rabbit and the tortoise. You guys remember that one?
Yeah.
Rabbit and the hare.
The what is it called?
Rabbit and the hare. Oh, the tortoise and the hare.
Because the rabbit and the hare are the same thing,
Tortoise
right?
and the hare, my bad.
The tortoise and the hare.
Yeah,
And you guys remember that one? That's a story about a rabbit and a tortoise running a race, and obviously we would know that the rabbit would win, but for some reason the rabbit ends up losing, right?
Right.
So so some of the other American stories that we grew up listening to are like Three Little Pigs, and you guys remember that one? That one's about how the three little pigs were being chased by like a wolf or something, and they built this house out of straw.
Yeah.
And then wait, no, is that Little Red Riding Hood? Dude, I'm so confused.
No, you're right.
You're right.
Three brothers built three different houses.
Right.
One of them was built of straw. The other is like wood.
Wood.
Wood,
And then the last one is brick.
Yeah, brick. And then you guys can guess what happened. The big hungry wolf came. No. The big hungry wolf is from Little Red Riding Hood, isn't it?
Isn't
both
both?
have
Is it both?
both, yeah.
Wow, that's a very well traveled wolf. So I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. You guys remember that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, I think the life lesson to that to be learned was, don't cut corners, right? Nothing in life is easy. Do the work and you'll reap the benefits, which in this case was a strong, sturdy house that the wolf couldn't blow over, and the three little pigs, or the one pig, saved his life. Did the other two pigs die?
Different versions of the story.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a kid-friendly ones.
All right. And then we have The Boy Who Cried Wolf, which I honestly don't remember. Jack and the Beanstalk. What was the lesson from Jack and the Beanstalk?
It was don't get greedy, pretty much.
Okay. The Ugly Duckling, which is, I guess the life lesson to that one is like, what is it? Like, be nice to ugly people? Or what
It's basically like,
It's like don't judge.
yeah.
don't judge a book by its cover kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Chicken Little, what's that? Dude, I
That
don't remember
one-
any of these stories.
That one is also like don't lie.
Don't lie.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to go back to these. Hansel and Gretel.
Mhm.
What is it? Make sure you always carry a bag of croutons or what?
This one was more of I think listen to your parents,
Okay.
kind of.
Okay.
But yeah, that one was also because I read it very recently. And,
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Why?
In researching this.
Oh, for the purpose of
Yeah,
today.
for the
Okay.
purpose of today,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, leisurely reading is Hansel and Gretel for Alan. Okay. But yeah, today specifically, because this is a podcast that stems from the Korean Federation, as you all know, we wanted to talk more specifically about Korean folktales, right? I can remember growing up, and we're not explaining it today, but there's one called 흥부와 놀부. It's like two brothers. One of them is greedy, one of them is humble, and basically the lesson learned is don't be greedy. But basically, the humble brother is his means are meager. The rich one obviously is, living lavishly. If this story were to come out today, like let's say he's driving a 7 Series and the other one's driving a Prius, right? Not to knock on Priuses for anybody that drives a Prius, but basically because his means are so meager, he goes to his brother's house to borrow a bowl of rice. The greedy one kind of scoffs at him, laughs at him, doesn't help him, and then basically the humble one gets like this pumpkin seed, if I remember correctly. He plants it, and then these pumpkins grow out of his garden. And when he opens the pumpkin, it's filled with like gold and all these treasures. And this happens when the greedy one goes and plants this garden with the same seed. He opens a pumpkin, and it's like a dokgebi, which is like a goblin. So like, all these bad things happen to him. So the moral of the story is, help those that are less fortunate. Be humble. Don't be greedy. Don't be flashy, and all these things. So, Alan, I know you researched a bunch of stories, but for the sake of time, we're gonna talk about a few, and then kind of go into depth about maybe 2. Right?
Yeah.
What's the first one that you wanted to talk about?
So the first one is the green frog or 청개구리.
청개구리. Yep.
So this one I actually very distinctly remember my mom telling me this story when I was young. Did your mom tell you about the story, or did you read it for the first time?
She never told me the story, but she'll just be like, "Oh, you sometimes be like a 청개구리."
Yeah.
So she would reference it.
like a little kid. But she
I
never
think a
told me the
lot
story.
of older, like first generation parents call their kids that. 청개구리처럼 막 한다고.
Yeah.
And we're gonna I'll have Brandon read you guys the story, and then we'll kind of figure out and we'll discuss kind of what the lesson to be learned from the story is. So, Mr. Brandon, read the whole thing.
Yeah.
This one's actually not that long, so just read it nice and slow.
Alrighty. The green frog. All right.
Right.
Long ago, the green frog lived with his widow mother in a small pond. The green frog never listened to his mother, and when she told him to do something, he always did the opposite. If his mother told him to play in the hills, he went to the river. If she told him to go up, he went down. If she told him left, he went right. If she told him this, he did that. The mother frog worried about what she would the mother frog worried about what she would do with her son. He caused her so much distress and embarrassment. Why can't he be like other frogs, she said to herself. Why can't he respect his elders and do what he's told? She was worried that what would happen to him. She was worried about what would happen to him when she was gone. She knew she would have to do something to break his bad habits.
Okay, let's go 2 paragraphs each. Go ahead, Alan.
Oh, I don't have a
Oh, you don't have a thing? 3rd paragraph.
Day after day, week after week, the mother frog scolded the green frog and tried to teach him the proper way to behave. But he continued to ignore her and did just as he wished. The mother frog was growing old, and she worried so much that eventually she became sick. But even then, the green frog did not change his ways. Finally, when the mother frog knew she was going to die, she called her son to her side. She wanted a proper burial on the mountain, and since she knew that the green frog would do the opposite of what she told him, she chose her words carefully. I don't have much longer to live, she said. When I die, do not bury me on the mountainside. You must bury me on the bank of the river.
The green frog looked at her forlornly with his head bowed. Promise me, said the mother frog. You must promise. I promise, said the green frog. 4 days later, the mother frog died, and the green frog was terribly sad. He blamed himself for her death, and he was sorry for all the heartache he had caused her. He knew it was too late to undo all of his past deeds, but he could become a good frog for her now. He resolved to finally listen to his mother's instructions. I always did the opposite of what she told me when she was alive, he said to himself. But now I will do exactly as she told me.
So even now, knowing that it was unwise, the green frog buried his mother by the river And when it rained, he stood watch, praying to heaven that the water would not rise. But when the monsoon rains came that summer, the river rose higher and higher. It flowed over its banks and washed its mother's grave away. The green frog sat in the pouring rain by the river bank, crying and crying for his mother. And that is why, to this day, the green frogs cry when it rains.
All right, then I'm gonna just read this asterisk because I actually haven't read this before. In Korean, the word chong can refer to both chong. In Korean, the word chong can refer to both blue and green, as the word ching does in Chinese. For this reason, the story has sometimes been mistranslated as the blue frog, with the mistaken notion that there must be something unusual about the sun frog, etc., his blue color, that makes him so contrary. But in Korean, there is no confusion of the colors blue and green, even when they are written with the same Chinese character. The 청개구리 is a typical small green frog. What seems to be the odd specificity regarding its name in the story is due to another kind of wordplay. Another Chinese character, also pronounced chong, means to make a petition or a plea. Which is actually chung, yeah, it's pronounced same chung. The Korean term for frog is 개구리, which is also the sound it makes, 개굴, 개굴. When the frog makes its prayer, its chung to heaven, it does so by crying out its own name. So the name of the frog, 청개구리, can be read either as either green frog or frog who pleads. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Wow.
So, I heard this story when I was, very, very young, which was like dinosaur days, a long time ago. And when I read the Korean version a few days ago, or when I reread it, I didn't really know what the life lesson to be learned is, except for listen to your mom or listen to your parents, generally speaking.
Right.
I don't know if you guys felt anything else when you guys read it. I know the last sentence to this story says, and that is why to this day the green frogs cry when it rains. So I don't know if this is like a folklore fairy tale to explain why green frogs cry when it rains, or if it's more of like what really hit me was the frog, after learning that its mom died, was like at the riverbank, like crying every day.
Yeah.
Right? That was like really sad to me, right? Because I have a mother that's like in her 70s and one day she's not going to be here. So I was thinking about that. And I was like, oh, such a sad story. But did you guys feel like there was like a life lesson to be learned from that story?
I'd say it's basically the same thing. Like listen to your parents.
Yeah.
I think the most compelling part of the story is just like how sad it is.
Yeah.
Learning that only after the frog's mother died did he start to listen to her,
Right.
like obey her wishes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's my
there's
take.
a saying in Korean that my parents always used to tell me was 있을 때 잘해, right? Be nice to me and be obedient when we're alive.
Yeah.
You can talk about it all day long after we die, but there's no use to that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, Brandon. What do you think?
I mean, a lesson that I kind of like took away from this was, I guess it has to do with, I guess the life choices you have. Sometimes you're offered, it can be regarding to your parents or whatnot, but sometimes you're offered opportunities in your life, and either you can take the opportunity or you can have a life full of regret. So I think sometimes, for example, there's always going to be signs like this, like your mother frog. They're like, oh, pick me, do this, do that, do something else. Like, maybe take another, like a leap of faith type of thing, or like in other opportunities, for example. And either you can take it or you can just live with the life of regret and not really, live a very stagnant life, not really doing anything, not really taking risks. So that's how I kind of see it, or that's how I understood it as. Yeah, because when the frog starts crying at the end, it's more like, oh, if I made a different choice, then I wouldn't be as regretful. I wouldn't be crying by the riverbank. But it can also relate to parents as well, too. But I just felt like that was something different that I took away. Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. Yeah, it's pretty cool that you saw that side from the story.
Yeah. I know most people talk about like this story is always like a relationship between like your parents and things, but also you can take it a step back and think of it as like a bigger picture too. So
Right.
that's just how I saw it.
Okay.
I'm impressed, Brandon. I'm very impressed. Yeah, if you guys can leave a comment down below, to kind of, you guys should definitely read it. You can type in Green Frog, Korean folktale, and you'll probably get a website that can, share. Well, actually, we can link you guys.
Yeah.
We can link you guys in the description. So take a look at it, read it, and then let us know what you got out of it down in the comments.
Yeah.
Okay. What's the next story that that you looked at?
So I guess the next one we can talk about is it's probably the Goblins Club.
Okay.
That one is very similar to the story you were talking about previously, James, about the two brothers.
Okay.
One of them was greedy and the other was less so. It's basically the same scenario, except it's just different situation or like how they come about their fortune or misfortune.
Okay.
So I thought that was very.
Is that a long one?
It is a little bit long, so
Let's see.
I'm not sure if we have time to read
Okay.
it.
Well, why don't you
Summarize it.
summarize it for us?
Yeah.
Synopsis.
Sure. So essentially, the story is about two brothers. One of them is poor and the other is rich. And the poor, while the poor brother is out collecting wood, as is his main occupation, he stumbles upon like a little hut in which he finds little goblins like beating the ground with magic sticks. And they can create gold and like jewels out of these sticks. And then out of a panic, one of the goblins leaves a stick, and so he picks it up and then he takes it home and then uses it to create gold. And then he becomes rich. The older brother learns about it, and then he, out of his greed, does the same thing, and then finds the hut, and then sits there and waits. But then the goblins find him, and what did they say? They're like,
It was like no, they were waiting for the kid that took the stick, but then it was the brother that was there.
Yeah.
And they beat up the brother.
yeah,
And then he didn't get anything. I think he just got beat up. I think
Yeah.
That's what happened.
yeah. That's pretty much
Yeah.
it. So just the moral of the story is like, don't be greedy, because it was the rich brother that wanted more.
Yeah, he wanted more.
And so he got that beating from the goblins. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I think back in the day, and I'm pretty sure they still, to a certain degree, teach these stories in Korea. But it's like a good conceptualizing way to teach kids, different morals.
Right.
Difference between good and bad, greedy and humble, and just to live your life as what's perceived to be a better person. And I kind of get that from almost every movie that I watch. I think every movie. Everything we experience in life, I think, is can be interpreted as a lesson learned. Right. Most Disney movies, I think, just so that I can be relatable. Like most Disney movies, I think, tell you a story, and then at the end of the movie, if you sit back and you think about it, and you're like, "Oh, what's the lesson to be learned from this story?" I think there's always something to be learned from. Right? Let's take for example, The Little Mermaid. Right? One of my all-time favorite Disney movies. What is the lesson to be learned from Little Mermaid in your perspective?
I actually don't remember watching it.
You don't remember watching The Little Mermaid?
Yeah, I don't.
The live action or the cartoon one?
No, I haven't. Brandon, do you remember or?
All I know is her name. Ariel.
Okay.
King Triton.
I don't remember what
So
happened.
I think you'll have to fill us in on that, James. What was
I was actually asking you because I didn't know the answer to it. But,
we could. There's a lot of other Disney movies.
well, as far as The Little Mermaid is concerned, there's a lot of different concepts in that.
Okay.
It's the first thing is Ariel was a very mischievous daughter to her father, King Triton. Right? She never listened. She was always late to choir practice. Right? So I think there's that. But I think there's a little bit of like gosh, I don't know. I was gonna say there's a little bit of like don't judge a book by its cover, or like don't just be inclusive with other different types of people.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that's correct or not. I don't know.
I mean, one thing I think I can like kind of bounce off maybe is, I mean, just the idea of not conforming to social stigmas.
That's exactly
Because
what I
of
was
the
gonna
fact
say.
that Ariel, you know, she was father's the king of the
Right.
ocean and stuff
Right.
and whatnot. So she wanted to get away from that lifestyle. To
Right.
see how it is,
Brandon.
you know, as a human.
Right.
So I guess it's just being able to, or I guess being able to have the ability to step away from society and see it and just be like your own type of person instead of just always conforming into
That's right.
to different groups or societal groups or whatnot.
Right.
Yeah.
Because during that concert, the seashell concert where all the princesses come out of the seashells,
Yeah.
they're all the same.
Yeah, I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
They're all like, you know, white.
Under the sea.
Yeah, well, that comes a little bit later, but when they're the king of the Triton,
Oh, yeah.
the father who loved us and raised us well, right?
Yeah.
And then they're all the same, and then the last seashell opens, and then Ariel's gone,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like you have like these 4 or 5 daughters who are very similar to each other, who grew up probably silver spoon fed, listened to King Triton really well, and then you have Ariel, this really mischievous girl, but at the end of the day, you know, part of your world, and then she keeps saying like, I want something more,
Yeah.
right? So something like wanting something more out of life rather than the status quo. That's what I wanted to say. Yeah, good job. Any other movies you guys could think of that you watched and you're like, wow, this is how I'm gonna live my life?
I think one that resonated a lot with a lot of people was Frozen, especially a lot of like little girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's-
Please explain. Even though I have a 6-year-old that watched it a lot of times.
Right? Yeah, she loved it, right?
She loved it.
I think one of the biggest lessons from Frozen was to fully express yourself how you are.
Okay.
I mean, the song like "Let It Go" is iconic,
Yeah.
right? It basically like sends the message that like be who you are, play to your strengths, and don't fear the judgment of others. It's kind of like what I took from it.
Yeah, I need to open up my brain a little bit more when I'm watching Disney movies, because I thought nothing when I was watching that movie. I was like, okay, it's a great soundtrack.
It is.
I like Adina Menzel, the person who sings that song. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think Disney movies are a great example of fairy tales and like not really folklore, but basically just stories that are meant to portray like a life lesson to be learned. Because Disney's produced a lot of movies that have like resonated well with what people want, I guess, and in terms of like what like kids should grow up learning, I feel like.
Yeah, I remember Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the one girl who was just abused by her mom and her sisters.
Yeah.
And then she never got to go to any of the big parties, and then one day that glass shoe fit, and then she met that prince, and that just hooked her up for the rest of her life, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of different Korean folk tales that I grew up listening to and reading about, and I'm sure a lot of those kind of trickle down through the generations, and then you guys heard about it as well. And we'll leave a small list of different stories that you can read about on your own in the description. But yeah, I mean they're fun. I think they're fun, and it's a good way to teach your children something fun. Not only because it's Korean traditional folk tales, which I think everybody should learn. Like for example, you guys remember that song that goes 학교 종이 땡땡땡 어서 모이자.
I think I've heard.
선생님이 우리를 기다리신다. You guys remember that song, right?
I think I've heard of it. Like
Okay, maybe not Alan. But you know, these are like I think they're called 동요, which are Korean like songs for children. So you know, London Bridge is falling down, falling down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are songs that we you know learn in like elementary grade school. And this is something similar, like folk tales and traditional Korean folk stories that come down that actually teach you about something. And I remember as a kid reading it and I'm like, oh, you know, that I actually learned something from this. Maybe I should try to live my life like this or change my life because of this story that I read. Right? So yeah, we'll leave a little list for you guys to kind of go through on your own, and hopefully you'll learn a lesson from it.
All right. That's pretty much concludes today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to stay tuned for next week's episode.
What are we talking about next week? Not yet?
We'll figure that out.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah. We'll figure that out. All right. Thank you guys for watching. You're watching
Chingoo chat. Bye, guys.
Bye.